to make some suggestions with regard to the object of this session now, which is to do with how to strengthen African countries' engagement and participation in this EDCT partnership. So I'm very glad to say some ideas have already started to emerge from the previous session. So it's my very great pleasure now to invite Professor Charles Mgone, the EDCTP Executive Director, to present to us a background and a summary of the current strategy on strengthening African participation in the EDCTP program, which will be the basis of the comments and suggestions from the panel that is going to finish. Professor Mgone, you have the chair.
Thank you very much, Chair. I feel a little bit awkward. I mean, it's like an emissary who has been asked to go to the next village to deliver news of a wedding. And when you arrive there, you find people already celebrating. I'm saying this because I'm giving you a background of EDCTP, but you already converted, and from very, very expressive talks from eminent people, more eminent than I, who spoke in the morning. They, in a sense, covered most of the things that I want to say. But nevertheless, I think I'll give a whistle-stop tour, very quickly take you through where we came from, where we are, and what is the future for us. Can we have the... When you're an executive director, you're used to ordering people. I was going to say, can I have the first slide, while I'm the one who's supposed to... Yeah, I still need to order people. Yeah, but I'm trying to find out the directions. Well, I think Pascal mentioned this or Hannah earlier in the morning, when the earlier sessions in the morning, that the mission of EDCTP actually is to accelerate the development of new products and interventions against when we started, it was against the three main diseases of HIV, TB, and malaria. Moving into EDCTP2, we've already had confirmation from Finland and Latvia. They want to join us, so we're expanding. And Poland have indicated they may be observers during the first part of the program. This is the scope of the program. We support clinical trials from phase 1 up to phase 2 at the current program. But in the second program, beginning next year, we will expand this to include all phases of clinical trial. For those who are aware of the clinical trials, usually you take them stage by stage until when you get to phase 3, when the drugs are registered or the vaccines are registered, and then phase 4 is when you continue looking at safety, looking at effectiveness in the field. So EDCTP will work on the entire pipeline. And among other things, in the phase 4 clinical trials, this is where, honorable ministers, we're going to interface with a lot of national programs in the sense that we'll have to continue looking at the things that have been delivered, how best to deliver them in the field. Currently, the partnership, as I said earlier, primarily the players are the Commission, European Commission, that originally supplied the initial funds, the member states and the African partner states. But we are working in strong and close collaboration with other partners. Some of them are represented here, NGOs, pharmaceutical companies, other funders like the Gates Foundation, as was mentioned by Honorable Minister from South Africa. So the partnership really is collaboration and synergy between all entities that are dealing with development of new interventions or improved interventions against diseases of poverty, and beginning from next year, also neglected infectious diseases. I mentioned about capacity building. The things that EDCTP in the first phase, and we will continue doing that in the second phase, have been doing in Africa includes personnel training and career development, which usually is a key to undertaking clinical trials using best practices. And then institutional support. And the institutional support includes physical structures like improvement of laboratories, improvement of wards where clinical trials are taking place, but also management structures like finance, project management, how to improve such capacities. And at national levels, we are working on overarching issues like national regulatory authorities. In many of the countries that we come from, national regulatory authorities may be weak or non-existent. So EDCTP supports this to ensure that the trials are done using best practices. And harmonization. Harmonization is done with our partners, other partners like NEPAD, like WHO, to ensure, for instance, when you are in a region like here in West Africa, all countries are having similar or at least coordinated activities. And we have also started a clinical trial registrar, which is now a Pan-Africa clinical trial register, and this is housed in Cape Town. This summarizes these activities in a nutshell. For anybody who has been involved with the EDCTP, will see this as almost in every presentation we make. This is how we support the programs. The reason we package this together is, first of all, to ensure you develop capacity to allow the work to be done using best practices and to be done successful, but at the same time you utilize the capacity immediately. One of the things we noticed very early on was lack of equity. When you are giving grants, usually it's the strongest institutions that always win. So to try to mitigate for that, we have established. So where are we now? We are moving into the second phase, and the second phase is going to be bigger. It's going to be 10 years, which we will split into 3 different semesters or periods. And as I said earlier on, we're going to expand. Now we're going to include all phases of clinical trial, including implementation research, which is post-approval clinical trial research. We are going to include other diseases which are neglected, and quite often there is a market failure, so that nobody, especially interested, they don't do clinical trials on these diseases. And moreover, we're going to expand the envelope. It is envisaged that, or estimated that the program will expand from what was 600 million in the past over 5 years to 2 billion. So we really are looking forward to see that there is a strong now partnership to make sure that we utilize these funds optimally. Currently, as was mentioned in the morning, we have 3 main governance bodies. The main body is the General Assembly, which is the policy making body, which is the supreme body in EDCTP. Then we have the Secretariat that does the day-to-day activities, the daily work. And the Secretariat is divided into 2 offices, but working as a single virtual Secretariat. We have an office in The Hague in the Netherlands and an African office in Cape Town. And the yellow arm on the left there of the screen is that advisory body. In the past, there were 2 advisory bodies. There was a partnership board comprising of European and African scientists, as well as other international scientists from US, from Australia, if need be. And there was another party called the DCC, which was comprising of African research scientists, African policymakers, and program officers. The aim of that body was to identify the African needs, to put African voice into the program, as well as to identify the required capacity development needs. But over time, we have streamlined that into the strategic advisory body, which does all those services. It is advisory, both in terms of capacity, but as well as scientific. The representation at the GA currently, we have all the European GA, all European members are part of the GA. But in addition, after consultation with various stakeholders, including our previous advisory organs, it was recommended that we should have at least 4 African representation. And the way the representation were selected was one through health ministers, and this was done in consultation with WHO Afro, using the regional commission, committee representation to select representatives from different countries on a rotational basis. The other group was the regional economic communities, and this again was to be on a rotational basis. Currently, East African Community and OSEAC in the GA. The third group was from African Union, and African Union was being represented by the Commission of Social Affairs, which deals with health issues in the Union. And the third group, which up until now we've never managed to fill the position, was coming from ministers of science and technology, ministers of health research, ministers of higher education, the group among whom you are here today, the groups that fund and control health research in many African countries. Next slide, please. Now, this is where we are going next. I mean, again, after several consultations and looking at different modalities, we are in the process of transition now while we are waiting to move into EDCTP2 beginning in next year. In the past governance, we were under the so-called European Economic Interest Grouping, which allowed the European member states to work with the Union in partnership to fund research, at the same time coordinating the member states, and this is what was funding EDCTP. But unfortunately, this mode of governance does not allow the associated member states, for instance, Norway, Switzerland, to be full members. It also does not allow countries like African countries who are partners in this partnership to be full members. So all those representatives who were representing Africa, either as a regional community or coming from African Union, they were representing the voice rather than being as members without voting rights. In EDCTP2, we are looking for the spirit of moving from the EDIG to an association under the Dutch law, which will allow other other sovereign states to become members. So Africans, if they wish, for instance, can come full members, and they can become, as long as they fulfill the membership criteria. And currently the membership criteria includes spending in EDCP-related activities merged as an EDCP activity to allow working together in partnership with other members. If we can spend up to 200,000 this way, either in kind or in cash, you can become a member. Or alternatively, as was mentioned by Michael, the Minister from South Africa, you could come as a group together, and this applies for both European and African members, that they can form alliances, and then in that alliance they choose a member to represent them in the organization or to vote for them during voting rights. So this is where we are at the moment. These activities are still under negotiations, but I must say very positive in the sense that we are meeting with the notary prior to put into statutes, and in 2 weeks' time we'll be able to discuss these things in the current General Assembly. At the same time, with the help of the Commission, the matters are also being discussed in the Council and also to be discussed in the Parliament prior to the start of this, hopefully early next year. Thank you very much.